Welcome to DNB in this webcast where we'll discuss the tanker market outlook. I'm joined by Hugo De Stoop, the CEO of Euronav, and DNB's shipping analyst Jørgen Lian. And it's great to have you here, Hugo. And we have to start with the rates, because whether you look at the VLCC rates or the Suezmax rates, they have been skyrocketing recently. So first of all, how high can rates go this winter?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this studio. The rates have been skyrocketing in the last 2 weeks. It's very important to remember that the fundamentals of the market are very strong, and so you don't have these skyrocketing rates for no reason. So we are very excited about it. How long will it last? It's a little bit difficult to say, and the level at which it can go, it's also very difficult. But if we look at the history, I think at 150, 200 is clearly something that we could have. How long will it last is the big question, of course.
And just to stress the implications for companies such as Euronav, you have 44 VLCCs and 25 Suezmax vessels. If you just assume that all of them were trading at spot rates on current levels, we calculate that you'd generate free cash of about $500 million per quarter. On your share count, that's $2.3 per share, or 20% of the NAV. So the question is just how long will it take for this rate environment to stick before you start to see those numbers show up in the reported results and cash flows and dividends for Euronav?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and obviously it's important to stress that at Euronav we have all our ships on the water. There's no ship that is going to a dry dock, and so we won't miss any of that. Usually you fix between 2 and 6 weeks in advance. So today we're fixing the first 2 weeks of November, and that will show in the P&L of the fourth quarter. So we expect the fourth quarter to be very good. And once it is in the P&L, despite the fact that the cash flow are a little bit slower to get in, we can then distribute it as dividends.
So how do you see the growth potential for the fleet at the moment? Are you happy with the fleet as is, or do you see an opportunity to grow?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's remember that we did a big purchase of vessels, 21 vessels, no later than last year. So that was the perfect timing to be exposed to the current good markets. As far as the number of vessels that we have in our fleet is concerned, I think we're very happy. Now, obviously, once you have 70 plus vessels, there are ships that are getting old and you need to sell them, and therefore you need to buy new ones in order to replace those. We will not make the mistake of buying assets when they are too pricey, i.e. When the rates are very good, then obviously as a consequence the asset values are going up, and it's probably not the right time to buy additional assets. Today, it seems that the pricing of the vessels are still reasonable, and so if we find the right opportunities, we are always there to grab those.
What would you say are the most interesting segment? Is it the VLCC or the Suezmax segment?
Well, the two markets are heavily correlated, and as you have seen, the VLCC took off a little bit earlier than the Suezmax. The Suezmax were very quick to follow, and to a certain extent are even going higher from a relative perspective to their size. So we have a good fleet of VLCCs. They are modern. We have a good fleet of Suezmax, but they are a little bit older, so we wouldn't mind rejuvenate that part of the fleet if we find the right opportunities.
So turning to the market fundamentals, on the supply side looks quite promising. You have an order book to fleet ratio at around 9% now, which is the lowest since 2013, which led to a tanker upcycle in 2015. So what's your take on why haven't there been any more orders?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's not forget that earlier this year, the rates were not that good. So we had a first quarter that was decent, but around break-even levels. And then we had a very difficult summer. And we've seen rates going down to levels that were a little bit alarming for a number of people. At Euronav, we were convinced that the latter part, the second half of the year, was going to be good. We thought that Q3 was going to be better than it was, but in the end, it's Q4, which is showing the promise that we believe there will be. That's one of the reasons why people have not gone to the shipyards to order more tonnage. The second reason is that we are a little bit in transition between two technologies, because today the ships are still burning heavy fuel oil. Tomorrow it's going to be called low sulfur fuel oil, but it's still a fuel oil. Tomorrow, the IMO has decided that the shipping industry need to reduce the CO2 footprint impact on the environment, and therefore a lot of people are moving to LNG as the fuel that they will use in their engines. Today, if you want that technology on a VLCC, you have to pay 14 or 15 million more. So it's a substantial premium that you need to pay, and I think that a lot of people are questioning whether that premium will continue to be 14, 15, 16 million, or whether it will reduce. Everybody believes that it will be reduced because the Korean yards have a tendency to put all the R&D costs in the first ships that they can sell, equipped with that new technology. And so that's the second reason why people have not ordered more ships to our mind.
In terms of demand for tankers, oil demand growth forecasts have come under some pressure from a softer macro outlook and trade war uncertainties. And at the same time, the activities in the US crude production seems to be softening. How would you say the underlying demand for crude shipping is developing?
Again, the underlying demand for crude shipping is made of two strong pillars, and that is the growth, i.e. the additional demand for oil that the world has, but also the distance over which you transport that oil. So let's take one of those pillars at a time. On the demand side, today the IEA is forecasting 1.1 million barrels of additional demand. I'm talking here about additional demand, whereas the entire world is saying we should reduce our dependence on fossil fuel. This year it's going to be 1.1 million barrels additional. They forecast that next year it could be 1.3 again. And in the last 20 years, it has been on average 1.1. So if every year we can continue to add around 1 million or more barrels per day, I think that shipping markets, certainly the tanker shipping markets, are perfectly okay with that. The second element is the US production, and the US production is very important for our markets because that oil, when it is exported, not consumed domestically, and God knows that there are more and more exports from the Gulf, is going relatively long distance. At the moment, half of it is going to Europe, the other half is going to the Far East, and we expect that to be expanded because there are more and more pipelines bringing the shale oil to the coast, and therefore it can be exported. And so on the ton miles perspective, the distance over which the oil will be transported, that is expanding. So we're very happy about it.
So
we're not alarmed by the fact that we're not seeing 1.4 million barrels of additional demand, or the fact that indeed the drilling rigs in the US is going down, because it's the growth which is going down. It's not the nominal amount of barrels which is going down.
So no real reasons to be very concerned about.
No, absolutely not. And of course, everybody's talking about the world economy and the potential for a recession. We have no control on that, so let's not be too worried about it.
So the fundamentals are looking promising, and then we have a couple of triggers that have set off the market now recently, it may seem. Number one is IMO 2020, and that affects for tankers both the demand and the supply side. So on the demand side, we see increased crude runs necessary to produce enough compliant fuel in 2020. While on the supply side, you have disruptions from scrubber retrofits and vessels being taken out of service, and also you've seen some storage of fuel ahead of 2020 start to take out capacity of the fleet. And on top of all this, you get the Iran sanctions that have taken out the Iranian-owned vessels, and now also US sanctions on COSCO, which has removed maybe further vessels. In total, we're looking at maybe 6% of the fleet that's been taken out in those events. So your view on the impact of those events in today's market, and also how long do you think they will be around?
Well, the reason why the market is at such an elevated rate and the levels that we are earning are so high is, of course, because of all the reasons that you just mentioned. Now, some of them are more permanent than others. I don't know when the US will lift the sanctions on Iran or on Venezuela, but it doesn't seem to be tomorrow. So we can clearly say that this is more permanent than temporary, especially because when you put your ships on layup, it's very difficult to bring it back to the trading fleet. So that's something that we're not too worried about. I think when it comes to IMO 2020, there's the element of additional demand for oil in order to produce enough LSFO, and that's also permanent and not temporary. When it comes to storing LSFO, and at the moment I think that there is around 7 or 8 VLCCs that are in Singapore with LSFO material on board, i.e. being used as storage. This is semi-temporary because of course that product will be sold to the market, and it's a very good buffer for the deadline that we have on the 1st of January. So it's good that there is enough material that has been stored in response to the demand that will arrive very soon. But the type of vessels that have used to do that are the older type of vessels. If the market is at $100,000 a day, those vessels will come back to the trading fleet. If the market is at $30,000 a day, which I doubt, those vessels will probably go for the recycling yards because they have an age profile after having been used for storage, which means that they will be difficult to get vetted in the market, i.e. They will become commercially unusable. Last but not least, the disruptions around the retrofit, i.e. the number of ships that are leaving the fleet, going to the shipyards and retrofitting a scrubber, something that can last anywhere between 35 and 45 days, and on some occasions maybe longer. That is a temporary element. However, it is an element that will be present in the fourth quarter. I think that you guys have done a very good prediction saying that in December only 4% of the world fleet will go and retrofit a scrubber. It is also true that at the moment some people are trying to delay this because they don't want to miss the good market. This is very good news for us because it means that this element, which was only supposed to last a quarter, is likely to be expanded on the first and potentially the second quarter of next year. So we are very happy about those delays.
And another thing is that you, of course, you have yet to do any scrubbers. We're getting back to that, but of course your vessels will be in
on
this
the water,
market.
earning what the market is giving us very generously today.
Exactly.
Yeah, as Jürgen said, you have yet to opt for scrubbers on any of your vessels, but you have taken another approach to IMO 2020. Could you elaborate a little bit and explain your thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's very, very important that everybody understands that if you look at the tanker shipping companies, everybody is exposed to the LSFO. So everybody will have to buy LSFO because no one or very, very few people are converting their entire fleet. So the exposure can range from 40 to 60%. And we are completely exposed to the LSFO and so far. And so we have decided to buy the material, i.e. the LSFO, when the price of the sulfur content was not put yet on the fuel oil, i.e. the premium that we had to pay compared to the HFO was minimal. Today, of course, that premium is getting higher and higher because we see the first ships taking LSFO, certainly the big size, because they know that the next voyage they are likely to cross the year end already. So that spread is getting a little bit bigger than, or significantly bigger than what we paid. So we're very happy about the 3 million barrels that we bought because we are, of course, in the money when we look at the price of procurement. When it comes to scrubber, our idea was a little bit different than the others indeed, because we own 2 large tankers that can carry 3 million barrels. Those tankers are not like a VLCC. They cannot earn $100,000 a day. They have been used as storage tankers for all kinds of products in the last 12 years and will continue to do so. So in a hot market, typically they will earn maybe 30 or maybe 35,000, but they will not go to 100, 150. So the opportunity cost of using our own tankers to store any material, be it LSFO or the HSFO, is relatively minimal. Tomorrow, if we see that the heavy fuel oil is dropping massively in price, nothing can stop us to accumulate that material into one of those 2 big ships, and at the same time fixed the spread on the forward curve, on the derivative market, which today is starting to develop very, very fast, but yesterday did not exist. So all the people who have put already the scrubbers or decide to invest in scrubbers, they did that in a very speculative way. And I'm sure that they will do very well, but we found for ourselves that it was not necessary to take the decision as early as the others because of the elements that we have in our hands at Euronav, i.e. a tanker and waiting for a developed derivative market.
And you're still comfortable with the strategy and approach that you have taken?
Not only am I comfortable, I'm delighted to have all my ships on the water, because when it's $100,000 a day, you make the calculation, 45 days, and I'm not even counting the deviation cost. which is probably another 10 days before and after, it doubled the cost of your scrubber. I mean, that's a fact. It's a matter of fact. It's money that you're not going to earn, therefore it's money lost. So I'm very, very happy that we are in a position to delay the decision. And it doesn't mean that we won't take that decision. Absolutely not. But we have time.
And you mentioned it, you've already started seeing physical bunkering of the new compliant fuel. And that starts to fill up when you're going to bunker now, more and more?
That's correct. So a lot of people continue to purchase heavy fuel oil because we don't need to use the low sulfur fuel oil at this point in time. But when you think about a VLCC, and it's probably true for big container ships or even larger Capesize or larger dry bulkers, if they don't have the LSFO on board in the separate tanks, obviously, they might not be able to switch on the cutoff date, which is the 31st of December. So it's very few ships at the moment, but we have done, I believe in the pool, we've done already 5 or 6, where we have stored a certain quantity of LSFO to make sure that it is available on board the ship and able to switch on the cutoff date.
And how has the experience been with cleaning out the old bunker tanks for the new fuel? Been difficult, or any delays you might expect entering?
It's not only cleaning, but that's very important because you certainly don't want that material to be contaminated with a higher sulfur material that you had previously. So the cleaning needs to be thorough. It's the cleaning of the piping, it's the cleaning of the tanks, but you also got to make sure that the people who are delivering you the LSFO have done their homework and their job in cleaning their own barge. We have tested a lot of material. We have tested a lot of material because we are uncertain about the quality of the material that will be delivered to us. It's a new type of fuel oil. Some of it is straight runs and has, as a consequence, less problem. Some of it is more blending, and so you could be surprised. That's the reason why we have tested a lot of material. And very often we were surprised by the material we got, and very often it had more than 0.5% sulfur content because people had not cleaned properly either the pipes or the little barge that is delivering the bunker on board. So there is a lot of risks there, and I can only advise all the ship owners to do the same, i.e. watch out for what you're buying and who is it coming from.
It's definitely interesting days in the tanker market. Thank you so much again, Hugo, for coming here, and thank you everybody for watching.
My pleasure. Thank you.